How's it going, everyone? I want to take this time to say thank you to all the new interactions that the YouTube channel has been getting here recently. We really appreciate it, and here at Less is More Sports, we will continue to give you all good content that you all love to listen to. Matt and I will be coming out with a new episode this weekend, and it's one that I really think you all will enjoy. But as for today, if avid listeners of the podcast know that if you just see me, you know you're going to get a hot take that kind of gets you all prepared for the next episode. And given our most recent episode, college basketball cap or no cap, it's very fitting. So this video today was inspired by, me listening to the Field of 68 podcast founded by Rob Dauster. And during each episode, he promotes their 2022-2023 college basketball almanac, in which they interview players and coaches from all the Division I teams across the country. So it's the idea is to give one of the best previews of the college basketball season they can, and it's and more than likely it's a really good insight. I haven't read it, but that's not what this is about. What this video is inspired by is during the promo for that almanac, Dauster goes on to say, or he calls the almanac the Year of the Big Man. That's the title of the almanac. And which is very fitting because, as Matt and I talked about on the podcast, this is one of the better years in recent memory of big men in college hoops. So during the promo, Dauster goes on to say that you can't have a first-team All-American team without naming Oscar Tshiebwe, Drew Timme, and Armando Bacot. The purpose of the video today is that I disagree with that statement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to name who I think should be the preseason All-Americans. And it's not necessarily who's on the list that's the hot take, but it's who I left off. So without further ado, let's get into it. So with the first guard position, I'm going to go with R.J. Davis from North Carolina. If you listen to the podcast, you know that I referred to the North Carolina backcourt as the best in the country. And even though in a lot of ways Caleb Love might be more talented, I think RJ is the engine that makes that team go. So I got to give him his roses and put him at my first guard position in my preseason first team All-American list. For my second guard, I'm going to go with Marcus Sasser out of Houston. And if you're keeping up with what's going on, if you go back to the podcast, I said if R.J. Davis and Caleb Love are the best backcourt in college basketball, Marcus Sasser and Jamal Shead are either number 2 or, if you want to do it, 1A or 1B. So Sasser, he's coming off the injury. I think he's going to come out this season with something to prove, and it's going to lead him to a first-team All-American selection. Now, this is the section where we start to talk about the Year of the Big Man, because I'm going to give my first forward selection, and it's going to be Trayce Jackson-Davis of Indiana, who I actually think is going to win Player of the Year in college basketball this year, and here's why. I think the Hoosiers take a big step in year 2 with Mike Woodson, and even though Trayce Jackson-Davis has already been putting up great numbers, I think the added success of the Hoosiers is only going to give more publicity to Trayce Jackson-Davis, and the committee's going to have no choice but to put him on the first-team All-American selection. So with my first forward position, or my first big in the Year of the Big Man, is Trayce Jackson-Davis. For my second forward, I'm going to go with Gonzaga forward Drew Timme. So if you've been following along, Drew Timme is not the guy that I'm leaving off, for obvious reasons. So Chet Holmgren's off to the NBA, so I think that Drew Timme returns to his more natural position of that small ball 5 lineup in college basketball. Being that he is the experienced senior, Mark Few is going to go back to running his offense through his experienced big. And that's going to make him have a similar production to when they went to the NCAA championship a couple years ago and almost finished undefeated. So Drew Timme was a lot of people's Player of the Year selection last year. I think he gets closer to that production here this year, now that he's returned to his more natural position with Holmgren going to the NBA. So with my second forward position, I have Drew Timme out of Gonzaga. So with my final position, drum roll please, I have Armando Bacot out of North Carolina racking up the final position and the final big on my first team All-American year, the big list. And here's why. Armando Bacot, as mentioned on the podcast, should have won Player of the Year in the ACC last season. It's almost a crime that he didn't. He led college basketball in double-doubles, and I think with the roster construction that North Carolina has, he's going to be in a very similar position to do the exact same thing this year. So because he's going to put up similar numbers, North Carolina, I'm expected to go on another deep run. I think the NCAA committee is going to have no choice but to put two Tar Heels on this list with R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot. So to round out my five, I have R.J. Davis, Marcus Sasser, Trace Jackson Davis, Drew Timme, and Armando Bacot. So if you've been following along, you have now picked up on the fact that reigning college basketball player of the year Oscar Tshiebwe did not make my preseason All-American list. And I know the Kentucky fans are going to love to hate me for this, but it is no fault of Oscar's whatsoever. The reason I don't have Oscar Tshiebwe on this list is because I don't think he's going to have to put up the numbers he did last year. This actually, even though I'm considered a Kentucky hater, and to a lot of ways that's probably correct, but the reasoning behind leaving him off the list is actually a staple to how much better I think Kentucky got in the offseason. Guys like Jacob Toppin, Jamie Collins, Lance Ware, I all think make a big jump this season. So Tshiebwe's not going to have to go out and get 20 rebounds. He's not going to have to score 30 points in a game for Kentucky to win games. He's going to come in, do his job, play his role just fine, like we all know he can do. But he's not going to have to put up those crazy numbers to give Kentucky a chance to win night in and night out. So I think because of the development of some of his supporting cast, the workload that Oscar Tshiebwe is going to be asked to do isn't going to be as significant as a year ago. So yes, it's safe to say that I do not have him as my preseason player of the year. As mentioned earlier, that is Trace Jackson Davis. And I do not have him on my first team All-American list. So that is my hot take for the week. I hope you all enjoyed it. So as always, be sure to like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube channel. Follow the social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. And without further ado, that's all I got for today.